Working in an industry where there's such an opportunity to shape the cultural zeitgeist, to really sort of talk about serious social issues, issues such as representation. Talk a little bit about that intersection of Hollywood and the entertainment world and your activism and where you see that right now.
I use this as a funny example, but one of my favorite books when I was 13 was Catcher in the Rye. And there was something about that book that really spoke to me, even though there's theoretically nothing about Holden Caulfield that relates to my life. That book wasn't written with me in mind. But it felt like it related to me partially because I've been trained to relate to mainstream lenses that may not relate to me. When I look at what we're trying to do in terms of representation, we're kind of trying to do exactly what Catcher in the Rye does, is that you're watching people just live their life, and it is absolutely informed by their identity, but it doesn't have to be the center conversation because it prohibits us from making art, especially since I think filmmakers of any minority are then given the burden of representing their entire community and making statements versus being able to acknowledge that we are of many communities that inform who we are, but we are still nonetheless individuals with really expansive lives.
How have you learned to tap into this power of difference?
It starts at home. It starts as being of a family in which we're Black and Iranian and being raised by parents that have intentionally made sure that we are aware of both sides of our heritage, but also aware of where we were placed in the global landscape. And so I think at a young age, from conversations around religion to ethnicity and culture, not only did we continue to learn about ourselves, but we also continue to learn about other people. And so that has definitely contextualized, or I think has formed how we approach this conversation on identity. And so that education at home to not only be proud of my heritage, but to constantly be aware of others and the other identities that I may not be included in, really helps me approach this conversation of identity and representation from how do we dismantle these structures of hierarchy and oppression of who is the chosen person to represent an entire community to make that more inclusive.